We have the professor with us, and Mike Lubie, of course, has stated his position on last night's Dolphin game, angry with all of these social media posts about Brian Flores, which, Professor, I mean, looming very large right now is the fact that you had what appeared to be or sounded like
Right?
just an absurd
Can we
conspiracy
get a little,
theory.
like, Lubie's getting angry?
Yeah.
Can we get angry that Stephen Ross and the Dolphins let Ryan fucking Fitzpatrick into the building to spread his lucky charms magic?
Oh my God,
And
you're right.
First fucking time they do it, Tua goes down with the guy's probably a career ender. Like, how do you let that piece of shit into the fucking building?
Good for you, Ken. I didn't even think about that.
The fucking cops arrest Tyreek Hill, but you let Ryan Fitzpatrick run around the city. Do your fucking job, Miami Dade. The minute that fucking Lucky Charms motherfucker showed up in the city, he should have been thrown in fucking prison. Like, the man spent 2 years along with Flores trying to kill Tua. And the first time he shows up, what happens?
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Very pleasant. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Peel Yourself Off the Mat Monday edition of the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest, and we got one Mike Lubitz. And Lubie's, he's got all barrels loaded here, and fire on two of his favorite targets, Mike McDaniel, the mystery man, and, of course, Chris Greer, which it's a mystery. I don't know. I mean, Stephen Ross is probably the most generous owner. The survey in the NFL said that he was the best owner in the league. Why? Because he just throws money around. I mean, you didn't hear any big controversies over contracts. You still have the guy from the Jets holding out, Hassan Reddick.
Yes.
No progress made. They're into their season already, 3 games in, and they won't budge off of the number. Meanwhile, Stephen Ross, hey, what do you want? A 10-year extension? Here you go, Mikey. You haven't done anything yet of any great significance, except you sound cool, you look cool. Nobody can figure out what the fuck you're saying. And you would have to think that if anything was an indicator. Now, granted, we've all admitted and observed that there's a giant drop-off. Whatever you think of Tua Tagovailoa as a starting quarterback, the drop-off from starter to backup with the Miami Dolphins probably was as severe as any in the National Football League. We keep talking about it because everybody's screaming, oh, well, geez, you really need to have a great backup. A lot of teams don't even have a good starter, okay? And many teams were scrambling in the backup quarterback category. Look at Green Bay. They're somehow managing to win with the Tennessee cast-off, right? Malik Willis is starting for Green Bay, and he's got a couple of wins so far.
He does.
So, I mean, to a certain extent, yes, all right. Let's face it. You have a defective item. It's hard to make it into something special. And in this case, you got Skylar Thompson. And now in his 3rd year in the system here, having shown very early on some signs that maybe this guy's got some ability. 7th-round draft pick. Could have been another Brock Purdy type of story. And instead, I mean, this guy has regressed to the point where that he's on an NFL roster is a surprise. I mean, I don't know if he's a backup in the CFL. I mean, it really looked bad. And in the preseason, if there was anything we could deduce from the preseason, it was that, oh, fuck, man. Tua gets hurt.
Yeah, because that's the thing.
We're all in trouble.
You're playing against UPS and FedEx drivers, not to be mean. Like, that's what a lot of the preseason is. And he looked like that. Still.
Yeah. Now, all of my optimism has been dulled greatly about the Miami Dolphins season. I really thought they were going to do well this year. I thought, look, I picked them to win the AFC East. What kind of fool am I? I mean, I really look like a chump now. I was not anticipating things to fall apart to the level that they have, though. Wow. Unbelievable. I mean, after this game, it was just a scathing indictment against the coaching staff. You could not have looked more ill-prepared for a ball game 3 weeks into the season. It wasn't as if they played on Monday Night Football and had to scramble to play on a Sunday. They played last Thursday, and they already knew what the situation was with Tagovailoa. So they had 10 days to get this guy ready to do something beyond. Can he just not throw the ball, Lubie? Is that what it is? I mean, look, if it's impossible to conceive that this guy could ever be successful in the NFL, but he showed, look, he even hung in there against the Bills on the road in that playoff game when he took over for Tua a couple of years ago. So you're asking yourself, how could a guy be so poorly prepared for a ball game? And how could your offense, with all of these expensive weapons that you laid out all of this cash for, all of his speed, even with an injury to Mostert, still you have Tyreek Hill, you have Jalen Waddle, you have A-Chan. You should be able to do something, no, Lubie? Something.
Yes.
But and that's coaching. See now, look at Mike Tomlin. I don't know that anybody does more with less than Mike Tomlin. Does he have a quarterback? Has he had a quarterback? They drafted Kenny Pickett. They've been scrambling around ever since Roethlisberger, and even Roethlisberger, his last couple of years, was kind of a shell of himself, not even necessarily a reasonable facsimile. And yet Tomlin finds a way to grind out these fucking victories. They're ugly. There's nothing overwhelmingly exciting about it unless you're waving one of those yellow towels there in the stands. But finds a way to figure out methods to win. And this is where McDaniel doesn't seem to have that toughness in his approach to the game. He wants to do all of these things. He's running the football successfully. Even a commentator, I don't know who was doing the color commentary on the game.
It's Trent Green. I think it was Trent Green.
Trent Green, okay. And he says, wow, look at that. They got something going in the running game. What are the next 3 plays? Passes.
Look, he literally said they're running 7 yards per carry. They had run 7 times compared to 21 throws. And Skylar
unbelievable.
Throw it like he couldn't.
Guy's throwing a ball like it has a gyroscope in it, and you're going to let him drop back and pass all day? You got to be kidding me. And what's weird was Seattle was just leaving that game on a platter like the hors d'oeuvres that there's one tray that nobody really wants to try. It's got like some squid eye with cream cheese around it, and you're asking the server what's that, and the server doesn't speak English, so they're going, and you're like, I didn't want it. I need Mike Mayo to analyze this shit.
Exactly.
What is it that you have on that tray? So that one's always standing in the corner there with nobody, doesn't even go back in to get a second tray of anything. Just figures, hey, I got the night off here. I got the worst shit that you could possibly have. And the game was hanging there, wasn't it? Just like that.
Yes. They scored 17 in the first quarter, which was an abomination. And then the defense woke up and played great. And they didn't score the rest of the game.
Did nothing to 3 and out every possession. They went like 4 straight 3 and outs, Seattle. And you're looking at that because this was the bet of my lifetime. I thought, and I gave this out on the Barry the Bookie show as my all-time biggest send-it-in special of the week. This was a gold plate, your money back for the rest of your life if it loses. And what was curious about the game was people were actually thinking that the Dolphins were going to hang in there. They were looking at Seattle's kind of so-so effort on the road against the Patriots the week prior. They barely, overtime to beat the Patriots, who we subsequently saw get crushed like a grape by the Jets. So you're asking yourself, well, okay, how deceptive is this 2-0 with the Seattle Seahawks? And they kept toying with the whole idea of losing this game. That line dropped down to 4, believe it or not. It went from 4 and a hook to 4. I thought, how are the? At least you would figure 6.5 in that game, Lubie. That how could you not figure that Seattle was going to be a touchdown better than Miami on paper, just based on what we know? They got their starting quarterback; he's doing pretty well. Gino, think of him what you may. Is he going to make the Hall of Fame? No. But a functional, serviceable quarterback. Another example of a guy, and we're seeing this around the league a little bit, because if you look at some of the other games, you had any number of guys that you have given up on that are stars now, right? I mean, if you look at Sam Darnold, how many people have given up on Sam Darnold? And he's lighting it up with the Minnesota Vikings, although suffered some kind of injury in this game. I'm not sure the level of severity of it. And then you had Andy Dalton come in for Bryce Young. Did that not consolidate that Bryce Young might be the biggest bust in the history of the NFL draft?
The fact that he looked that good with the exact same team.
Same team.
Yeah, it's not good. That's not good for Young at all.
They put up 36 points.
And it's Dalton. Like, he hasn't been even really backup worthy for a few years.
Dalton had phenomenal numbers in this game.
He was fantastic in this game.
It's unbelievable, yeah. Andy Dalton, he goes, I don't know. Let's see. I wrote it down here somewhere.
I can find it for you. It's not.
Yeah. All right. I don't know what I did with it, but anyway, yeah. I mean, he has like 300 yards passing, a 68% completion percentage, and what was just absolutely phenomenal. So, how is that possible? You had these guys. I mean, was Dalton not available? I don't know that you really. Would the Dolphin fans have been thrilled if they signed Andy Dalton to be a backup quarterback? No.
No, that's the funny thing is like he was 20. He threw for 70% completion percentage.
Yeah, 319
Raiders
yards.
team that had beaten the Ravens, who are still a good team, even though yesterday almost fell apart again for them.
Yeah.
The Raiders had beaten the Ravens, were a tough team. They may not be a playoff team, but they're not a bad team. 70% completion, over 300 yards with 3 touchdowns. That's actually, again, they've said this yesterday. He was the first quarterback at the time to do that at any point this season. With 0 interceptions and only 2 sacks.
Now, it couldn't have been because Bryce Young seems like a very likable guy, somebody that his teammates would be inclined to embrace. I don't know. He doesn't pop off or anything. Almost humble to a fault, Bryce Young.
Yes.
And makes you think that maybe you need a little bit more bravado if you're going to be that guy. It wouldn't hurt to have an infusion of a little Dan Marino kind of ego. Swashbuckling approach like, hey, nobody's better than me. He doesn't seem to, just body language. If you're going to make an observation through TV, shows you how sharp I am, right? I'm able to pick this up through TV. But does he not impress you as the kind of guy that really needs to infuse a jolt of enthusiasm into his play? I know when you're getting crushed like a grape, it's not easy to do. But it does seem like he's humble to a fault and not getting the results, but isn't the kind of guy that you think that the team would say, oh, good, now that fuckhead's out of here, let's go play for Andy.
No, it feels like he's just not fit for the NFL game. After that, it's not like, again, that's what's annoying about the guys that are like Gardner Minshew, and they lost, but he's played vastly better than anything the Dolphins have to offer. Sam Darnold has had a total resurgence. I hope he's not hurt because he would, if I'm a Viking, I would question what we do with JJ McCarthy because Darnold's not old. He just was on 2 horrible franchises with bad coaching and bad personnel.
How many teams has he been on already?
He was on
4. This is his 5th team, maybe?
This is 5th. Okay, I know of the Jets, obviously, the Panthers, and then he was on the Niners, but it wasn't like he was bad on the Niners. The Niners just had 2 different quarterbacks that they put ahead of him. So it wasn't like he was going to
Was he somewhere else, like Washington or somewhere?
I thought this is only his 4th team, but it could be.
It could be. I don't know.
I'll look it up. It could be his 5th team, but he has a good coaching staff and actual talent. And look, but if we had signed any of those people, we wouldn't have been giddy, but I would have been. It's better than Skylar Thompson.
Well, what we saw in the preseason was such direct. And it was a universal observation. It wasn't just like, you're looking to, pick at anything to say something negative about Chris Greer and what he's doing as a general manager. But this was sorely an area of need. You could see that. They play 3 preseason games after 1 preseason game. You ask, we were talking about it, right? Dolphins crying tell. Yes.
Perk poo-pooed it because they have other issues, and they do. But we were like, look, Tua going a whole season without injury only makes you believe he's definitely going to get hurt this year.
And the special teams coach, who the fuck is he?
Oh, my
God. They could not line up for a single play without getting flagged. Now, I know there's some kind of emphasis this year, maybe overly so, kind of like that year they ruined baseball with the balk calls, where they're now, constantly throwing flags for illegal formations. And you look at the formation and you're asking yourself, what was wrong with that? I don't know. What the fuck? Can you really decipher? I've listened to Sterator. I've listened to all of these rules guys, and they're going, well, you know what? The guy's in the backfield. I'm saying, where? What? I don't know. I don't see it. The color analysts can't point it out because nobody knows what the fuck is going on.
That game was bad. Literally, Harlan was like, the one time they finally had a kick that had no penalty. He and Green hugged each other.
Amazing. Yeah. How many times the Dolphins ended up in like a 4th and 59, I think, at one point because they just kept getting backed up on the penalty.
4 times they re-kicked that. They redid that punt 4 times.
Now, the one that went down at the 5, how come they ended up re-kicking that?
I think they were offside.
Oh, they were offside?
Right.
Okay.
I think they were all they
Because that was like the second in a sequence of 3 punts
4.
that they had to attempt. Yeah. Well, what a horrible game, by the way. I mean, we always say this, and we've said it for years. I hate to keep coming back to this because you would think that this team was scripted to create a lot of excitement with Tyreek Hill and Waddle and the speed and Tua Tagovailoa. That's his game. I mean, it's the one thing he does really well is throw those 15-yard darts.
Yep.
And that's what you need when you have a couple of receivers that can make a move and then outrun everybody. It's fantastic. Empirical formula standpoint, that should work.
Yes.
But it can't be the only thing that you could do. If you're a head coach in a National Football League, what is the one thing that everybody's always talking about? They go into the locker room at halftime. They cut to Bill Cowher on the halftime show there on CBS, and he goes, well, they're going to have to go over a couple of things and make some adjustments. Halftime adjustments. How many times, every press conference that you see with the coach after the game, hey, what were your adjustments at halftime? We cut 2 people. That's what the fuck we did.
Exactly.
Well, it's rocket science. It's being applied. But in McDaniel's case, if he's going to be a one-trick pony, and then on top of that, maybe, and this now has come to the surface more so than ever, and you've been questioning it since day one, Mike Lubie Lubitz. So I give you credit for this. The play calling of Mike McDaniel, I mean, is under such criticism that and there it was. That was a perfect example of it. The Green literally says, "Wow, look at this, man! They're eating up chunks of yardage." Now you're only down as atrocious as the game was because Seattle was doing nothing, hovering around that little hors d'oeuvre tray with the squid eyeball and the cream cheese. What is that? I don't speak enough Spanish to be able to.
What the?
Some woman from Guatemala in a maid's outfit is holding the tray. Right? There's always one with the hors d'oeuvres at a bar mitzvah, a wedding, whatever it is, that never has to go back to the kitchen. What are those?
At least 1 or 2 things that you're like, no.
And she's just hovering around once in a while because she knows that, the manager came out, peeked his eyeball outside, and he's like, come on, let's get this thing moving. We got to get everybody sitting down for the salad. He's trying to coordinate something that would be like orchestrating the FAMU band at halftime of the Orange Bowl game. And this woman from Guatemala is sitting there with a tray of fucking squid eyeballs and cream cheese, and she's not doing fucking anything.
They're mad at her.
And that was Seattle's offense, wasn't it?
Yeah, what do you mean?
They were leaving the game there on a platter, Lubie.
They got bailed out by the Dolphins offense. Like they got the ball on an interception at the 6. They had the ball twice inside the 10 and did they get just a field goal?
Imagine they got the ball at the 5 fucking yard line with a chance to get right back in the game. They're down 10-0. They get smacked in the face right away. 10-0. And it looks like it's going to be blowout city. And then forever it was 17-3, Lubie. 17-3. And you're sitting there thinking, naturally, if you're a gambler, what do you think in the entire ballgame? How in the world can I get fucked here?
Yes.
That's the God's truth, right? How in the world can I get fucked here is what you're thinking during that entire game. You get the bet of your lifetime on it, and they're hovering around like schmucks. And yet, just awful preparation by the Dolphins coaching staff. They were able to do nothing. And look, Thompson was getting hammered. How is it that this is so deceptive? That a guy can have favorable stats while getting hammered like that, right? Not in terms of large numbers of yardage, but the guy throws as badly as he was throwing the football, as poorly as that ball was coming out of there, and the number of times he was under immense pressure. He's on the run, going to his left, having to fire it back down the field. 6 guys are all over his receivers. Guys are coming right up the middle, hitting him right in the chest. He completed 13 of 19 passes. Does that seem possible?
No.
If he was 3 of 19, I would have believed that.
Yeah,
is that a misprint in the stats? CBS Sportsline checked them out.
He held on to it a lot. It's what it is. Is he took a lot of sacks or tried to run and went nowhere. He didn't.
And the other cat, Boyle, was 7 for 13.
Boyle, I liked better, and he still wasn't good. And he still, once they got around inside the 20,
what's this guy doing out there? Literally, this was your proverbial parcel delivery guy comes into the ball game and is going to try. You knew they weren't scoring another point, right? After they got the 3, you thought they'd be hard pressed to score another point. And yet, this is the National Football League, And if you're betting point spreads the whole time, you're thinking, don't fuck me, Seattle.
Yeah.
Don't fuck me.
Yeah, honestly.
No, it's the truth. And the Dolphins were, I mean, completely ill-prepared to do anything about it. So where does that leave us, Lubie? I mean, it's not. We knew it wasn't necessarily going to be pretty. You did sign this Huntley guy. I would have to think that you do everything in your power to get this guy to play. Thompson looks like he took a shot to the ribs that might keep him out anyway. I don't know that anybody would want him back in the lineup.
You understand? I hated Tom Brady. I hated Tim Tebow. If they got hurt, it helped my team. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't upset about it. But I've never like rooted for someone to get hurt. That's something as a sport fan, a sport enthusiast, someone who plays sports my whole life. You're taught you don't root for someone to get hurt. So I never really did. I was when he first got hurt, I was like, yes. I was like,
Philadelphia fan scumbag.
I know. Then he came back in. I'm like, God damn it. And then they're like, oh, he's hurt again. I'm like, oh, thank God.
But there was no shot anyway. I mean, it wouldn't have mattered. You're asking yourself, what's in behind this guy? Nothing.
No, nothing. But I just didn't want to see him anymore.
So is the crucifying of Chris Greer, is that justified today? That this was a big flaw. Now the offensive line also.
It's a joke.
Armstead takes some kind of shot to the eyeball. He's out of there. And it didn't look good before that. Even trying to protect Tua. And his team that was supposed to be this big high wire act isn't scoring shit for points.
None.
So I think, probably was one of the worst Dolphin games I've watched in my 40 some odd years of
it's up there. No, it was bad.
Being here and around the team.
And the defense actually did its job. That's the funny thing is like you actually had one side of the ball play well. The defense was put in bad situations all game, went away somehow without giving up points. Like they wouldn't allow Seattle to move the ball. And look, and that's not like Seattle's a juggernaut, but Seattle was 2-0. Like they weren't a horrible team. Like they're at home. It's obviously tough to play. The decibel thing, they were showing that all goddamn game.
Yes.
And the defense did its job. The defense played outside of the first quarter, played really well. And it was still a horrible game. Like usually if it's a horrible game, everything's bad, right? No, the defense played well. It was still just.
They kept them in it. I don't know if it was Seattle sputtering or Dolphins defense. They did some interesting things there. I saw Jalen Phillips out covering a tight end on one play and defended it pretty well. The fact that it was only 17-3, at least in terms of the point spread, you're thinking, Lubie, and really, what else really matters, Lubie? That you were laying, in this case, I would have had that thing at 4 and a hook. I didn't realize it dropped down to 4. Would you have waited till game time to make your bet to try and get a better price on that? You would have to think that people would wake the fuck up. This is like watching the Trump campaign. What are we watching, people? You can use your own eyes to make a judgment and realize that if you saw what's transpired with the Miami Dolphins team so far this year, you would have to say that, wow, lucky to win that first game, shocked in their second game loss, and then, completely unprepared after 10 days to get ready for the Seattle Seahawks, completely unprepared to play football. Except maybe, you might give a B if you were doing the old, report card on the defense. Other than that, everything is it's Plutarski numbers, man, 0.0. But what should be in the greatest question? McDaniel's coaching. Does he seem ill prepared? He's not like these other guys that. Okay, I've been dealt some really rough blows here. I'm going to find a way to compensate for it.
No, when he came in, I was excited. We were excited because we respect coaches of all kinds, but we always sort of mock the Dan Campbells. The guys that not take it too seriously. It's fine. It's their livelihood. It's what they've done their whole life. But
sure.
Are just just old school to a fault. And it's like, dude, it's 2024. Guys are making $60 million a year. Come on. It is football. Come on. But I don't know if you want some of that. I don't judge a guy for being modern and forward thinking because there are plenty of guys that are like that. It feels like Matt LaFleur is like that. It feels like our guy with the Rams is like that. It feels like the Bengals, Zach Taylor with the Bengals. Like these are young guys.
Sirianni.
They're yellers. They look like, the team gets it and they just treat them like men. And, they're stern enough, but they're not like losing it. So you don't have to be like a blowhard. You don't have to be Roger Saleh, some guy that just looks angry all the time. But that doesn't mean you're just going to coast either. Just because you're fun and we like how you do interviews doesn't mean.
Could Nietzsche coach a football team? That's the question.
Maybe, but the problem is
not Nietzsche. I'm talking about Nietzsche, the philosopher.
As bright as he is, he yell all that bullshit. Like his play calling is just dumb. Like it's like, dude, it's okay to run. Like they got to run. It was 2nd and 4.
Yeah.
They ran again, and A-Chain got hit in the backfield and somehow still got 2 yards. Okay, so they're showing you if you run it, not with your fucking fullback, if you run it with running, because the right kid looks like he shot out a cannon and he's strong.
I think he's good. Yeah, no, in the preseason he was impressive.
And they barely use him. So it's 3rd and 2. What would you think to do? Your quarterback, by this point, it was like the 3rd quarter, I think. Like it was clear Thompson was scared to throw it, didn't know to throw it. Like he was just bad. Okay, 3rd and 2. What do you think you would do? You just gained 8 yards running. You should just run it, right? I don't even care if you run it to off tackle. I don't care if you run it straight, whatever you want. Run it with a non-fullback. You're probably gonna get the 2 fucking yards. What does he do? He does he has him go back, survey the defense, and he gets lost and he loses 8 yards. Like
hook and lateral, he probably had called her. He was looking for Tony Nathan. Dude, by the way, too, speaking of Tony Nathan, the Dolphins of the past, we can't possibly be 27 minutes into this session here, Lubie, and not mention, and you met this guy several times, couldn't have been a more enjoyable figure to be around, Mercury Morris.
Oh, my God, that was sad.
Yeah, wow, I was shocked, too, because a lot of the Dolphins from the 72 team, and you still see them around, the ones that are still with us, which, fortunately, there are many, that they all look great.
Yes.
They really
well,
do.
Including Merck. Like Merck was, every time you saw Merck
looked like he was in the best shape of all of them, too.
He looked great. He had all this energy. He was nonstop. That was the joke. Wow. I was shocked. I really was. Like it was actually really sadness because he was a really good dude. And whenever you saw Merck, even if you were laughing that he couldn't stop talking, you always smiled. You left that conversation smiling. Like
he made you feel good. Yeah, he made you feel good to be around him, and he was so tight with Jim Kick before he passed away. It was a very touching thing. I mean, to think that these guys went back and were teammates in '72. I mean, it was real, sports Americana.
Yep.
Good friends for life. One helping the other out in his, dire moment of need there at the end of his life made him more comfortable. And then the last guy I expected to check out was Mercury Morris.
Yep.
At 77. So it shows you, Lubie, it's a short trip. In fact, that number is looming large on the board there. But no, we love the Merc. And I'll never forget, too, because it was very early on in my tenure here in South Florida, my time here. Sounds like I'm doing time. When he got sentenced in the drug case by Ellen Morphonius Gable, who was known as the most wicked of hanging judges. And, of course, the drug laws were extremely harsh then. And, and maybe in some cases deservedly so, but in most cases not. And it was a minimum mandatory 15-year sentence.
Oh, Jesus.
And I forget how many years the Merc was incarcerated with that, but somehow he managed to get out on a miraculous appeal. And I don't remember all of the legal premises that were involved there, but and then became just like a delight to be around. One of those guys that philosophically, even if he was a little bit out there, like you said, Lubie, it was always enjoyable. So may he rest in peace. He was always a great guy. All right, Brett Tesser, the agent to the Stars, is going to join us here. Interesting, all the way around the National Football League. College football as well. Wow. I mean, your FSU Seminoles got a win. I had a friend who made the biggest bet of his life on the Seminoles laying the 2. I told you about that. Our good friend Troy West.
I'm glad he covered, but it wasn't an automatic.
Wow.
That was so rough.
If this Cal kicker doesn't miss 2 mid-range field goals.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot about the kicker.
If he makes one of them, you knew FSU wasn't scoring any more points in that game. That was agony. I mean, you talk about agonizing over a ball game. My God, the guy's got the most money he's ever had riding on a game, lifetime, for a guy that sends it in pretty good. All right, coming back with Brett Tesser, the agent to the Stars, in a moment. Now that.
The time.
8:30.
Here, let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
The simple pleasures of this job, the way a stadium sounds when one of my players performs well on the field, the way we are meant to protect them in health and in injury. Less work, more attention, caring for them, caring for ourselves in the games too.
The agent to the stars, the one and only Brett Tesler.
All right, welcome back to the show. Peel yourself off the Mount Monday here on the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie. It's always a pleasure to welcome this gentleman to the program here. Tremendous insight into everything that goes on in and around the National Football League. And we welcome to the show the agent to the stars, Brett Tesler. Brett, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, guys. Good to be with you.
It's good to be with you. We were just talking about what was an El Stinkeroo, maybe of all time. My history of watching Dolphin football, I don't know that I've seen a game that was more painful than that. I suppose there have been several you could throw into the category, but I mean, should we have anticipated a little bit more? I think a lot of things that were in question already maybe became even more in question, as in what is Mike McDaniel doing, and to what extent is Chris Greer responsible for what's been an ugly start to what was supposed to be a great season?
So this is certainly one of the more disappointing losses for the team that I've seen, you know, having grown up down here and having started following the Dolphins in the early 80s. You know, there may have been worse losses, as you said, but also those may have been during seasons where the expectations were low to zero. And obviously, you know, this has become a postseason type team as it's expected when you're in they are in the multitude of weapons that they have on offense, including obviously their Pro Bowl quarterback who, you know, got hurt in the last game and is now an injured reserve. And so now you've got the backup quarterback in, which would be not as much of an issue losing a game with a backup quarterback, except when you look around the league this year. Some of the biggest stories are the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers, who've done it all with a backup quarterback, the undefeated Minnesota Vikings, who've done it all with a backup quarterback, the Green Bay Packers, who are undefeated since they brought in their backup quarterback a couple weeks ago, as well as some other teams that are winning games with backup quarterbacks. So I think it goes to show not only just kind of the lack of experience that they have down here at the position. I mean, in the case of Mike White, you have a guy who has come in as a backup in New York and lit it up and won some big games. And so, you know, in the case of the backup that the Dolphins have, obviously the guy has some ability. He was extremely, extremely productive in his rookie preseason. You know, in their estimation, he beat out Mike White in this preseason and in this training camp. And so, you know, they decided to roll with him. And then unfortunately, of course, Tua goes down and now you see Thompson out there yesterday, just not able to get it done. And obviously it does not help any lesser experienced quarterback when they're under duress all game. What was it, 5 sacks prior to the injury? So, it's just awfully hard to win games under those circumstances. And so, I assume that the coaches and the rest of the people in charge know what they're doing. So they're going to have to figure out what needs to be done and what kind of adjustments need to be made to avoid having happen what happened yesterday against a team that I don't think many people consider to be elite. So it's definitely a tough pill to swallow, and I can assure you that nobody is less happy about it than the coaches and the people in the front office. And the season's young, so let them do their jobs and see what they're able to do, at least in the meantime, until Tua can come back in a few games.
All right, the frustrating point for me, and I want to embrace Mike McDaniel. We like him. He's different. He's avant-garde by comparison to most head coaches that you encounter in the NFL or anywhere for that matter. Seems to be a very engaging person, a guy that is very likable. And yet, coming into this season, Brett, you hear it. I don't know. Is it as strong inside the league as it is with people just speculating that this guy had something to prove, that his methods, while very effective in some spots, at times his overall coaching and his game management, time management, clock management, play calling leaves, like any coach, but consistently seems to leave some things to question. My thought yesterday though was sort of enhanced by the idea that maybe he wasn't quite as ready as we thought. Should that team not have been better prepared for that game? I mean, I know the talent drop off was huge. Tua and what he's capable of doing in the offense to Skylar Thompson, it really didn't show much of anything in his game. In fact, it looked like he's regressed since his rookie season, in spite of being there 3 years. But I mean, some of these coaches in the league, how does Mike Tomlin win with the garbage that he's had the last few years? Shouldn't you be able to toughen up your team in that spot? I mean, is that not a mark of a good coach, not just the innovation that he shows on offense sometimes?
So first of all, Mike Tomlin probably isn't a great comparison because he's maybe one of the greatest coaches in the history of the game. Obviously, he's got the Super Bowl, but the thing is, as you said, year after year, he seems to have them in contention and seems to have them win big games against opponents where, if you look at the roster, Pittsburgh is very often overmatched. They have a different philosophy in how they try to win. They don't make the big splashy free agent signings and end up breaking contract records every year in terms of money spent on any given player. They draft generally well. Their front office has turned over in the last few years, so there's been change there. And like you said, the guy just continues to win. And ultimately, they're not really in Super Bowl contention every year because at the end of the day, I don't care how well coached a team is. Once you get into the playoffs, almost every team is well coached, as well as more so talented than Pittsburgh. And in the case of McDaniel, look, forget about the engaging personality and forget about some of the other things that make him unique. He's an extremely intelligent guy. And there's no doubt about that. I think he's generally liked and respected. And on top of that, you look at the work he did in San Francisco and some of the other places he's been, nobody can question this guy's ability to draw up an offense. And so, look, I mean, the first half of last season, the Dolphins were like at a historic pace. They had a chance to set the record for most points ever scored in a game, which I believe they still should have tried to do. And so everybody's thinking middle of last season, this team's unstoppable. This team's winning a Super Bowl. It doesn't even matter how many points the defense has given up because nobody can outshoot this offense. And then, of course, they started playing a little bit of a tougher schedule. And as the season wears on, other factors come into play like weather and things like that. And, you saw that season come to a screeching halt. And so here we are at the beginning of this year. They've lost some very good impact players. Christian Wilkins on the defensive line comes to mind, a couple other guys. And then they've had some injuries. When they went ahead and signed Odell Beckham, they felt like that would be a real difference maker, sort of as a third receiver, and he hasn't been healthy. And then you've got my client, Raheem Mostert, who has been unable to play the last couple weeks, 2 losses. So these things make a difference. But at the end of the day, I never really looked at the roster and felt like it was complete in terms of unit after unit after unit after unit. And so offensive line, always a huge thing. And, looking at it this season, as well as looking at it over some of the last couple seasons, it's just one of those units where there's certainly some talent there. And I think they addressed it in different ways and, pick up some good value signings in free agency and try to draft some guys in the later to mid rounds. If you hit on all those guys and if everybody stays healthy and if everything clicks the way an offensive line unit needs to, they could be functional. But as we've seen this year, it's been very difficult for them. Teron Armstead, who is easily the most talented lineman here, one of the most talented linemen they've ever had when healthy, has obviously had a difficult time staying on the field. And that really sort of sets the tone in a bad way as far as what goes on the rest of the offensive line there once they end up losing their anchor on the left. And so that's made it hard. And obviously it's gotten some of the quarterbacks beaten up a little bit. And it's really not a very successful recipe when putting a young backup quarterback in there for them not to have time. So, I don't think it's just bad luck that the team is 1-2. I think it's one of those things where the season's early. They're going to get healthier as time goes on. Tua is going to be coming back at some point, it would appear. And there's still a lot of season left. So the same way that the season started great last year and sort of sputtered out, maybe this is the exact opposite. It's not about who's winning in September. It's about who's winning in November. And so there's a lot of season left. It's not just 16 games anymore. There's 17 games. And so there's plenty of time for them to turn it around, and we'll see what they do.
Okay, so it's something you said is sort of what we were discussing going into the season. For all the moves they've made, and it's funny, losing Wilkins and losing the defense stuff, people point out the defense out after the first quarter was fantastic. Like, they kept getting put in really weird situations and would give up 0. And yeah, Seattle's not a juggernaut offensively, but they're not horrendous, especially being at home. And the defense has sort of done its job. The defense hasn't been, again, amazing, but the defensive losses aren't what's screwing them. What's hurting them is they're supposed to have one of the best offensive football, and right now they have one of the worst. I think they may, outside of the Giants, or there's one other team, they may have the worst offense in the NFL right now. And it's 2 areas that were clear heading into the season. One, the offensive line's been an issue since day one. And what's weird is Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel, who we were talking to Chris Perkins, who's covered the Dolphins this whole time during Mike McDaniel's tenure, most of Chris Greer's tenure. And a lot of people have just said, you can't really blame McDaniel. He doesn't pick the players. So we brought it up to Greer. We brought up to Perk like a week ago. He's like, that's not true. He's like, actually, Mike McDaniel has as much involvement with the personnel as Greer. Like, Greer goes to McDaniel, what do you want? What do you need? He tells him, and he's like, let me go get that. So they actually are, which is fine. That's what the good organization, that's sort of what it is, right? You want the coach and the GM working in lockstep. But what that means is they both deserve blame them or credit, right? So when the offensive line was an issue, and most of us said it, like, either it's not talented enough or the guys that are talented are always hurt. Jackson hurt, Lamb hurt. This Robert Jones guy who's supposed to be a backup, he's always hurt. Then Armstead, now, even when he plays, he's not playing well, and he's always hurt. When you go into the season, they were pretty clear saying, yeah, we like what we have. They openly would say on camera, we like what we have. Okay, well, if it then's going to look like ass, you get blamed for it looking like ass because you said you like what you have. On top of that, the backup quarterback position. If you watched 4 minutes of preseason football, you could see they didn't have they had no backup quarterback with a guy who's always hurt at quarterback. We like what we have. We like what we have. Okay, when that's what you see on a Sunday, you get the blame. So here's my thing. How can either of them still have a job when it's their decision to roll out in a season with all that, and then you're going to be a 4 or 5 win team with that? Like, I don't see how Tua can come back. He's indefinite now. Like, what is it? 8 games, 6, like whenever he comes back, he's still playing behind that line. Like, I just, it's hard for me to believe that these two gentlemen who probably know football are going to be at the helm of this team going into next season. Like, the more I watch the two of them in their roles, the more I'm assured there's no way they're back. Like, you're around this organization. It's just, it's befuddling to me that they could have gone into the season with that the way it is and been happy about it.
Well,
it's a lot there. I mean, if you can talk Lubie off the bridge.
No, it's just, I don't see how you can see it any other way. Like, they didn't do anything. Look at what Darnold's doing. Look at what Minshew's doing. Look at what Dalton did yesterday. They didn't try to make a move on any of those guys.
All right. So first of all, Lubie, take your finger off the trigger. Count to 10. The sun's still going to rise tomorrow. So
wow, that was solid.
Here's the truth of this situation. Look, in this league, everybody's accountable. The front offices are accountable. The coaches are accountable. The players are certainly accountable. As an agent, I'm accountable.
Yep.
Obviously, I'm expected to do my job at a certain level. And if my clients feel like that hasn't been the case, or I'm not capable, or someone else can do it better, they're going to end up making a business decision. So one thing about Stephen Ross that we've seen over the decades is he is a very patient man. He definitely wants to win. I mean, everybody wants to win. You can say what you want about the coaches, the front office. Do you think anybody wants to win more than they do? It's just a matter of having the wherewithal to make it happen. And look, I mean, in recent years, the team is clearly in a better place than they were years ago under the likes of Joe Philbin, Cam Cameron, Tony Sperano. I mean, 3 guys who really never had any business whatsoever being head coaches in this league. So at least you've seen them finally go in the direction of the trend of getting a young, offensive-minded type coordinator who brings excitement and brings new theories and brings a renewed enthusiasm that we haven't seen. I mean, come on. I mean, who do you want to party with, Mike McDaniel or Joe Philbin? So
Smoking Joe had some game.
The bottom line is whether or not what they've done has worked. Realistically, over the last couple of years, to a degree, it has. But now it comes down to expectations. Are they wanting to continue at the same level they've been the last couple of years, where you're sniffing the postseason, or with the investments they've made in a lot of key positions, are they really trying to go for it all? And if they're trying to go for it all, again, there's a lot of season left. Anything can happen, as we've seen over the years. But yeah, what you've seen yesterday, forget about winning a Super Bowl. That won't even get you to the postseason, and that won't even get you to 500. And so would that be considered an acceptable season down here after some of the progress they made last year? Probably not. And, you know, in terms of what would be done about it, that's not any of our decisions to make. Obviously, there's people who are way more familiar with what's going on in there from day to day. So, look, ultimately, we don't own the team. We don't run the team. We don't control the draft. We don't call the plays. The people who are in those positions to do that will continue to do that until it's determined by Stephen Ross that they shouldn't do it anymore. And so in regards to who makes the calls there, I will tell you this, from my experience with the team, there's some organizations where you just know clear cut in New England, it doesn't matter who has the general manager title. Bill Belichick makes every decision there personnel wise when he was there. Then there's situations like Chiefs, where Andy Reid probably has final say, but obviously Brett Veach, the general manager, is pretty respected, and I think they work well together, and I doubt that there's ever any real issues there where they're butting heads. Then you see situations like San Francisco. People might not really know who really makes the final call, Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch. That's one of those where it's really close, and realistically, a final decision could end up being made by Shanahan. Down here, it's a little different because I think McDaniel has some input. I think that Chris Greer is the kind of guy, one thing about Chris, he's a great guy. He does not have a big ego. He's not, I think he wants to work well with the head coach. And now I think he finally has a head coach here that you can work with and that probably has good input to offer. Someone like Tony Sperano, who is just kind of an old line coach his whole life. I mean, I don't really know what that guy could have offered in terms of evaluations at quarterback or skill positions or some of these other things. So, McDaniel and Greer can still be a great collaboration. It's just that up to this point, obviously, something's missing. And so give these guys time. I mean, the season's going on. Let's see if, look, getting a guy like Huntley, that's a good guy to have. That was a great acquisition because here's a guy who came in as a backup and ended up making a Pro Bowl in Baltimore. So let's hope that with a little more time to get up to speed, if they decide they need to go in a different direction than Skylar Thompson, let's see if maybe Huntley can come in here and give that kind of spark and bring that kind of athleticism and win some games. And let's hope that Tua is willing and able to come back once his time on IR is over. And maybe it just brings a whole renewed enthusiasm. Maybe the whole team rallies behind him. And, maybe Odell Beckham gets out there and does what he was brought in here to do. And, obviously when Mostert's able to get back, that's not going to hurt. So, again, this team can only go up from where it is right now. So let's see if they do it.
I used to follow this guy in the Miami News, which probably predated your birth here in South Florida. And his name was Jim Milner, and he used to do these 3-word capsulizations of every horse that was entered in the day's program at Gulfstream Park or whatever track was open. And my favorite one, and it would say things like in tough today, must come late. And my favorite was signs of life. And you were just hoping for some signs of life in that ball game yesterday, and we never saw it. So let's hope that some of your enthusiasm for the immediate future of the Dolphins turns out to be well-founded. One other thing, because this guy was one of my favorites over the many years I've been here in South Florida. Were you ever collared at a social event or some Dolphin gathering at a corner of the bar by Mercury Morris? And did you have much involvement with the Merc in your years of being around the team?
So my Mercury Morris story is when I was in college at Purdue, maybe around 95 or something like that. I was just a big sports fan. And, I was somebody who dreamed of trying to become an agent. And like a lot of young sports fans, I enjoyed collecting memorabilia and different stuff like that. And a buddy of mine put on a huge Miami Dolphins autograph signing. And so you had all the great players. You had McDuffie. At that time, that was when Billy Milner was the first round pick. So he was there. And then there was probably about 15, 20 other Dolphins there, and this was the year where they expected to win the Super Bowl because they had Steve Entman. They got all these other first round picks that had been in other teams, Terrell Buckley, all these guys. And Mercury Morris happened to be there, and I met him, and it was just a real thrill because while I'm not old enough to remember watching him play, he's one of these guys where, yes, he had a very nice career. I mean, he played in the league for a while, had a 1,000-yard season, won some Super Bowls, but he's almost more of a legend. Like just the name Mercury Morris. And then when we met him, he was just such an interesting guy, such a intelligent guy to talk to. And for a kid like me at the time, to meet just, a Miami Dolphin legend like him, he was just so talkative. It just really put me at ease talking to him. And so it was just a great experience. And I've always been a fan of his since then. And I've probably maybe run into him a couple of times and always went out of my way to say hello. because again, as a young sports fan, as somebody aspiring sports agent, you end up meeting a local legend like that. And you just realize, because, one thing I knew about him is I knew about his problems. That was something that I think maybe my dad told me when I was younger or whatever, when discussing some of the other guys. I know that he'd gotten in trouble for drugs. And so you're not sure what to expect when you meet someone like that. And then you end up meeting a guy who's just so intelligent, so engaging, so well-spoken, so well, just his overall personality. So, yeah, it was sad to see him pass. And, he's a guy whose name will certainly live on down here forever.
Yeah, I mean, there's a parallel with the prison thing and Reuben Hurricane Carter, one of my favorites of all time. Where post their incarceration, they became just fascinating to listen to. Now Carter obviously got jobbed, and for Merck, he's sentenced at a time where the minimum mandatory was 15 years, and he's in front of the hanging judge, Ellen Morphonius Gable, who rarely, I mean, if ever, I mean, she was handing out the harshest of penalties there. Like, you may as well have had her being a judge for that Turkish prison in Midnight Express. And she actually was sort of apologetic to the Merc there, saying, hey, unfortunately, this is all I can do. But he managed to get out. And when he did, wow, I mean, one of the most engaging guys that and punctuated everything with that great laugh that he had and a Magic Johnson type of smile.
Great smile.
So, one of those people that, like you said, Brett, you talk to and immediately you feel like you've known a guy, the good portion of your life. Always a pleasure, my friend. Enjoy a doubleheader action tonight. We've got 2 games. I'm not sure I'm on board with that. It's hard enough to follow one, isn't it? What do they do? They overlap them, or how does that work? No, it's not one after the other. So, two Monday Night Football games tonight. Bills and the Jaguars and the Bengals and the Commanders.
Yes.
So a lot to look forward to this evening if you're an NFL fan. Brent, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for being with us.
You got it, guys. Have a good week.
Thanks, Tess.
Brett Tesser, the agent of the stars. So he says, save your bridge jumping, Lubie, for another day. Unfortunately, I don't share his optimism about the whole long season thing, and because don't you need to demonstrate some signs of life?
They're just done. Look, it's not like I yelled a couple times because they were so close in that game yesterday. I was like, shoot, if they can somehow find a way to win this game, Huntley,
it was possible.
Well, it works out for them, actually. Like, there's a reason why they played Thompson yesterday. They signed Huntley now because they have a bye next week. So it's perfect. Huntley has this week to get ready, has next week to get ready, and then the week after. And Huntley is a guy who started games, and I think he's won a few games. He was a Pro Bowler in one of the years where like 8 guys tapped out. So like he will start.
They play Monday Night Football this week.
Oh, they play Monday next week?
Yeah.
All right. Well, he'll have 2 weeks. So I don't see anyone playing.
They host the Titans, who stink.
The Titans. I knew they played the Titans next. I didn't see them Sunday. So that's what it is. They play Monday. So they play Monday. So he has 2 weeks. So he gets 2 weeks to prepare. If he's going to win this game, oh, shoot. All right. You're going to be 3-1. And even if he misses a couple more games, you've given yourself some leeway. Maybe he does come back and play this season, and maybe you can find a way into the playoffs. Who knows? But the way
it's a lot of big ifs, though.
It's not only that they lost; it's how they lost. It's like, okay, even with Huntley back there, I mean, this line isn't.
They look defeated, though, too. I mean, from the body language standpoint, here we go. Trying to imagine that we can figure things out.
Yeah.
Did they not look dead on the bench?
Yes.
Dead.
Look, the defense looked fine. The offense looked like it had no life, and it's like, how is that changing? Like, Tyler Huntley may give them a spark here and there, but like, come on. I mean, it's just.
Skylar Thompson's incapable of throwing like a bunch of just quick shit just to get a little rhythm going. And the Seahawks were I'm screaming, "Don't fuck me, Seattle!" at the screen, as I did have a vested interest in Seattle covering the 4.5 point spread, which is where I bet the game at, only to see it shrink down to 4. Do you feel like you got ripped off there? Like it's like dealing with your cell phone service, where they're now offering $1 for the next 6 years for new customers, but it's unavailable to you, who you're getting whacked at $100 a month.
Yeah, it's But I didn't think this game was going to be close. It was what it was. So, like, whatever the spread was, as long as it was under 10, you were going to cover it, and you did. I just look, and I appreciate Tesla taking it's still early. That's the scary and sad part, is that this early, we know it's done.
Total discord, it looked like.
It's done. I mean,
they can't get their big players involved. I mean, I know that this was just one game, but it was happening before this also.
Look, even if Tua
with Tua, it was happening.
Even if Tua, their offense wasn't good. Even if Tua is cleared, you're putting him behind that line. Like, how is he going? I don't see how he survived. Like, whatever chance
this guy gets hit in the head again.
And what happened this year?
It's not going to be pretty.
I mean, I don't know how you have hope. I'm not trying to be a fatalist. I'm the one that liked McDaniel at the beginning. It's just they haven't done any of the things you needed to do to improve this roster where you needed to improve it. It's not like they have speed. Fuck with the speed, guys. Your offensive line sucks. Like, grow up. Like, realize that and they didn't sign anyone.
They can't lost. Find 5 grunts that can kind of hang in there and make something happen. Unbelievable. And then the backups have been the story so far in the National Football League. And you look at your roster and you're asking yourself, what the hell is this guy doing there? I don't know that Mike White. I mean, the thing about this, people are saying, oh, they should have kept Mike White. This guy, in the opinion of the coaches, at least,
it wasn't better.
They had more faith than him, Skylar Thompson, who really looked. I mean, sometimes, the backup quarterback often comes into a game and it's like the substitute teacher in your social studies class, where you had some real strict drill sergeant type of teacher that nobody went against ever. You didn't make a peep in there. And then all of a sudden it's chaos, my friend. It's like Trump got elected president again. By the way, congratulations, too, to Billy Corbin. I didn't realize this was his thing.
Yes, I reached out to him and hear back from him. I'm going to reach out to him again. But it was a big deal all weekend, and it was him.
If you ever wanted just a total scathing indictment of the Trumpster, I didn't see the beginning. I saw a good portion of it, though. From Russia with Lev, and it's this Lev Parnas guy, who was one of these guys that was Ukrainian agent of sorts and was doing things for the Trumpster, and Rudy Giuliani got duped, and then of course they turned on him and tried to fuck him completely, and now he's he's talking, and it was not pretty, but I would imagine Billy Corbin, having seen his political viewpoints, he's not a big fan of the MAGA Republicans, but you could not have done them any more. Literally, this was a scathing indictment on Trump and his whole bag of shit that he's trying to present to people. And people are still painting this guy as if he's some kind of fucking saint.
But it's less and less people.
Oh, my God.
It's a minority, and at some point it'll be the vast minority. I mean,
I'm not sure. I mean, this thing, unless they're just bullshitting us to keep interest.
They're 100% bullshitting. And it's okay. I don't mind them bullshitting because I like that people are motivated.
I don't like it. Yeah. Well, I keep people on the idea that this
motivated
could happen.
And angry. Yeah. But they're clear. You can see, like, every poll, even the ones that they're tight to call, they keep inching more in her favor every fucking day.
How could it not? I mean, how could any rational human, if you see this thing,
he's worse.
No rational human being could ever want this guy anywhere near a government position.
They're just worse. Like him and JD Vance they're like, fuck.
Jail would be too good of a place for him.
They're just leaning into being the things that even the people on the right don't want. And that's Trump is constantly saying he has no idea who this guy is, and the guy's saying he fucking knows me like I'm his brother. And there's videos and
what a joke.
And that stuff worked the first time because people just wanted someone to lie to them. It's been 8 years of it, so it's not. Not only it's not working anymore. Walz and Harris have no problem openly talking about it calmly and rationally. So people are like, "Oh shit, how do we miss that?"
Guy looks like a lunatic in this thing.
Yes.
Corbin, great job. All right, we got to run. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you next time on the Defo Show. Tomorrow, Dave Hyde, you said?
Dave Hyde will be joining us.
Very nice. All right, so we'll get deeper into this quagmire of who's to blame.
And the Canes look good. We didn't talk about them at all.
Oh, yeah, Canes, FSU survives, gets its win.
Wow. Got a nice win. Yeah, it was actually a good.
2 missed mid-range field goal tries by the gallant kicker.
But...
Yeah,
they won.
And Florida won.
Florida won decisively, and UM in their toughest game.
They were staggering around a little. I was thinking, Jesus, Cristobal effect is coming
close
into
to the late third. But I mean, look, USF is still a middle of the road to bottom rung group of 5 team. It's not. I mean, it's not fucking playing Clemson at Clemson, but they won decisively in the fourth. And that's what they were asked to do.
As Cam Moore threw one of the nicest passes you'll see.
Will
Sort
for
of shot it from the hip, man. I just he was a little bit on the move, fired it down the field,
fucking-
dropped it between two defenders. Hurricane receiver takes off. That was the turning point in the game, and then was off to the races from there.
Yep.
All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow on the next edition. The Mayo Lunchbox, 1:00 today.
Shenanigans. We're at shenanigans.
Am I in or out on that one?
If you want to be,
tap in
you're
from
always
home?
invited. Obviously, Pat loves
Yeah,
us.
yeah. Be easier for me if I
Head down there. But
Yeah.
that's
All
on
right.
you.
See what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'll tap in at the worst at 1:00. All right, Louis. We will see you guys next time as we leave it on that.
The time.
It's 9:06.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my show.